Welcome back to the Volkswagen channel. Today we're going to be changing the valve cover, coil packs, and spark plugs on a Mark V GTI. Let's get to work. So I just changed the cam follower. I've been having really bad oil consumption recently. Big clouds of smoke coming out of the back of the car. And I just noticed that the back of the valve cover is totally covered in oil. All right, real quick, we're going to go over what equipment we're going to be using today. We've got a new stock valve cover. I looked at the billet aluminum ones, but for the price, you know, these are 200 versus the 500 for the aluminum. So I figure it'll last me another 60,000 miles. So we'll just go with the stock one. I had also picked up some dielectric grease. They recommend putting that around the coil pack boot. But as I'll show you later, the coil packs come pre-greased if you're getting brand new R8 coil packs. And then we're going to be using iridium plugs. The stock plugs on the GTI are platinum, but I've read that these iridium ones, which are one step colder than stock, are good for tuned vehicles. And we've got a Stage 2 Plus APR tune on this car, so hopefully these will do the trick. And I believe they are gap to 0.28, I believe. It doesn't say on the box, but I remember that's what it was. We also got some degreaser. Might as well do some degreasing while we're at it. We've got our spark plug wrench here. Here's our new R8 coil packs. So you can see those lines in there. That is the dielectric grease that they put in there from the factory, so no dielectric grease is needed to be added to these. Here's the coil pack and the connector, and to remove them you're going to want to push the connector toward this way. You're going to push it this way and then push down on this, and it'll release the tab. That's where the pink is. You can see it going up and down. Once you get that to pop up, it'll make a small snapping sound, and then you can pull it out this direction and it should come off. And we unclipped each one individually and then pulled it out at the same time to get those to release. All right, now we're gonna pull the coil packs out. We're just gonna use a zip tie. All right, we're ready to pull the coil packs. To do this, we just put together two zip ties like this to give us a way to pull up on them. You can buy a coil pack puller, but it's a little bit cheaper to do it this way. You can see there's some corrosion around this one right here.
Satisfying noise. Have you ever had your engine bay sprayed off with water?
I've done it once, and you're supposed to be able to. There's a seal around here.
Yeah.
Here's the coil packs we just took out. Interesting that two of them have some corrosion. Not sure if that's from moisture or oil. Let's check out the seals. Seals look okay. All right, got the coil packs out. You can see it's kind of dirty around there. I get squirrels in my engine compartment. Yeah, not as much oil as I thought. One part I didn't think about is the single-use clamp at the back of the valve cover here. It's one of those ones that crimps on, and that's backed by the air intake and the turbo. And so I didn't have a replaceable or a reusable clamp like one of these ones right here. And so we're gonna steal one from my brother's motorcycle. He's got one right here that looks like it should be the right size. So we're gonna take that off and then try and put it on there. Bigger turbo. It's been like caked on there. Now we're gonna undo the 14 Torx head bolts on top of the valve cover and then the 2 on this side. Definitely some oil leaking out right there. It looks like there's even some, yeah, this one is totally caked in oil. That's probably where our leak is, right there in the back. This one is loose too. The oil are on these threads. So that means the seal has failed here. To get these 2 bolts here on the end, we're gonna have to use an adapter here. It's a little tight getting your screwdriver in there, so. A Mark II GTI would be pretty cool. Or a square back if you wanted to go older than that. Oh shit. Just drop the torque bit. Straight down there. You see it? Yeah. Oh, it's so close. There it is. It's down there. It's almost fallen through the aluminum at the bottom, so we should be able to get it out of the bottom of the car. Hold it right there. All right, underneath the car, you can see the light shining through and you can see the outline of it. It's right there. I got it. Come here. There we go. Tape. Let's not do that again. All right, now we've got all the bolts off, so we can start working this thing off. I think we've got it. There we go. All right, so we've got the cover off here. We can see where the seal sat along here, and we can see where it leaked. So along the front here, it's pretty good, but as soon as we get to the back, you can see that's where the leakage was. Leaked out of the valve cover down here. So it's a good thing we're replacing it. And we're going to go ahead and clean up the edge that the seal attaches to here with some paper towels and some degreaser before we put the new one down. All right, so looking down to the spark plugs, we can see that there's not too much. It's a little hard to tell, but doesn't look like there's too much oil in there, and none of the coil packs had oil on them, so that's a good thing. Once we get the new valve cover on, we will replace those. All right, here's the underside of the valve cover. So right here, this piece doesn't look lined up with that. So I think this is where the delamination occurs, is right here, and then I think that this pops up, causing oil to get where it shouldn't be. It was leaking in the back over here. You can see the oil is on the bottom of the seal. Up here you can kind of see a little bit, but it was leaking the most behind the engine cover here, and you can see it's been coming out of here too. Not too much obvious damage, but it does look like there is a little bit of a break in the seal here. All right, we're about to set the new valve cover down in there. We've gone and removed the bolts that it came with because we don't want them getting in the way as we're putting it in. You want to make sure that your valve cover seal is seated properly when you set it down, because it does come undone. All right, we've got the new valve cover on there. It took me longer than expected. We kind of ran into a couple obstacles. Getting it down in there in the right angle to get the seal on there without falling out was hard. Also, getting that hose on is hard. this one, and we still have to get this one on. This one is just not budging at all, so I thought we were going to be able to do this without taking the air intake off, but we're going to have to take it off to be able to access that hose easier, unfortunately. So now we've got all of the 14 top bolts in place, and hopefully this thing is lined up with the seal properly, and we're going to torque it on. I believe it is it's only 8 foot-pounds. That's how tight you're supposed to put it, which is not much at all. We'll use a torque wrench for that. And there is a torquing order. I'll go ahead and show that to you guys right now. And so that's the order you're supposed to tighten the bolts in. All right, we've got it all torqued down, and we use this torque wrench. As you can see, that's not very accurate, so I do not recommend using this one at all. I recommend using a small one that has actual inch pounds. While using this, we tried our best to get it, dead even between 0 and 15. We erred on the side of having it tighter than that, but anyway, it worked. All right, so we've got the valve cover back on. Now we're going to go ahead and pull these spark plugs. Got our spark plug wrench with an extender. We do have fairly deep combustion chambers. What would you call that? You got to be very careful while doing this because you don't want to break the ceramic tops of the spark plugs. Glad to find out they're not seized. There we go. All right, let's take a look here. Definitely a lot of corrosion. These are the original plugs. So these have been on the car since 2009 and 70,000 miles. These new ones are iridium instead of platinum. You can see the difference there. And they are gapped differently. These are gapped at 0.32, I believe, and these are 0.28. So a smaller gap hopefully will give us better results with the tune. Another reason for replacing the valve cover and the spark plugs is I've been getting misfires at high RPMs. I mean, for one, they're old, but also I've heard that a colder plug, gapped smaller, is recommended, so we're gonna give it a go. Just pulled out our second plug, and this one has oil around it. You can see that the oil has been leaking from the valve cover and getting down by the spark plug. So we're gonna torque these down to 22 foot-pounds. I think they recommend that you go back and tighten them. I think what we're gonna do is try and tighten them down to, oh, this is magnetized. That's nice. Yeah, so we're gonna put them in there at like 23. They do have a washer, so gotta be careful that that stays on there. Also, I've read that you are not supposed to add any kind of anti-seize to the threads. All right, that's about 22 right there. All right, new coil pack. Just gonna pop that right down in there. Again, you don't need to add any dielectric grease because these come pre-greased if they're brand new. All right, that's all that takes. We have pretty much everything put back together. We've got the coil pack, spark plugs, valve cover all plugged back up. Last thing we need to do is get this one vacuum hose back on. I had to remove the air intake and the heat shield to do that. And then also we're going to put a new clamp on here because these ones are one-time use. All right, first startup.